Hi guys, and welcome back. In today's video I'll be changing the front brakes on this 2000 Honda Accord. To get started, the first thing I'm going to do is remove some of the brake fluid. To get that brake fluid out, you can use a turkey baster. I don't have one, so I'm just going to use a straw and a baby food jar to store it in. And the basic tools that you'll need to do this job are a jack to raise the car, a jack stand to support it while it's up, something to block the back wheels, a lug wrench to get the lug nuts off, to get the wheel off. I like to use a socket and a breaker bar. You'll need a socket and a ratchet to get the calipers off, or you can use open-end wrenches. You might need a pair of them so you could wedge them to get a little extension on it. I have this breaker bar and a piece of pipe. If I need a little extra persuasion, you'll need a hammer of some sort. The caliper may need a little tapping if there's a lot of rust on it. You need a large screwdriver or a pry bar to get the caliper off and the brake pads. To do a little cleaning, you'll need a couple different brushes, and this will be to clean the rust off the caliper, and also to clean up around the piston on the caliper, because that piston's stuck all the way out and there'll probably be rust on it and some debris. And I also have a toothbrush to clean it up when I get real close to the rubber that's on there. You need a C-clamp so you can squeeze that piston in so you can get it over the new brake pads. You'll need this brake lubricant. This will be for the pins. When you take them out, you want to clean them up and put this lubricant on, and you want to watch to see how worn they are. Then you'll need the brake pads themselves. Alright. And for the final adjustment, you'll need a torque wrench to make sure you have those bolts tightened enough. Now, let's get into this. Okay guys, I'm back and the car's jacked up. Now before we get started, I want you to see that I have this car in a jack, so it's supported on that jack stand. You don't want to work on the car with just that jack supporting it. Never know when it's going to slip. Now this car's on a hill, and even if it wasn't, you want to make sure the wheels are blocked. In this case over here I just have a 6x6, and on this side I have a chuck. So with these two wheels blocked, I don't have to worry about the car rolling down the hill or slipping off the jack. I hope this camera stays recording. I had a problem with the last video I did where the camera shut itself down. I already have the wheel off. I did that off camera. And to get to the pads, we have to loosen up this caliper over here. There's two bolts, and on this Honda there's 17 millimeters. Now I already loosened them. Besides the torque, the rust that was on it made it difficult to get off. I used a breaker bar. So they generally don't come off this easy. This was already loosened up. The bottom one I already have off. Now, the last brake job I did, the calipers were on the other side of the wheel. And I didn't look, and I jacked up the car with the wheels turned in the wrong direction. So the side of the vehicle you're working on, you want the wheels turned to that side, because this would be facing out and it would make it easier to get to. I already had it up and decided just to follow through rather than jacking it down and moving the car again. You want to give it a couple of taps to break free any rust that might be on there, and then either with a long screwdriver or a pry bar, just gently pull these out. Now what's holding it on there are the pads themselves. There we go. Okay, you don't want to let this caliper hang by the hose, because then you'll be replacing your hose also. So here's the caliper. I'm not sure what you can see on camera there. And I just set this on top. I normally tie this up with a wire, just for demonstration, but you can rest it on top. Just be careful it doesn't slide off. Now these brakes just started squealing, and I don't know how they didn't start squealing sooner. There's nothing left. Here's a shim. Here's the pad. Wow, this was down to nothing. And here's the other one. Now, I didn't pick up the brakes yet. I'm going to go get them. And when I do, I'm going to use one of those pads, come across this way. And then I'm going to use a C-clamp to squeeze this piston back in. Otherwise, the new pads that have padding to them, which will be quite thicker than this, will not fit in. That was the reason I took some of the brake fluid out of the master cylinder. I'll be back to continue the video after I pick up the brake pads. Okay guys, until later. Back with the parts. I picked up a couple of rotors and some brake pads. I'm having some trouble getting the new brake pads in. They seem to be a little thicker than the ones that were there. And I don't mean thicker because of wear, but they seem to be a little longer, and I'm having trouble fitting them into the space here. So what I did, I took off bracket here, this out with a wire brush. I'm going to put a little lubrication on it, the top one and the bottom one. I had the brake pads on here, and I cleaned around this piston to keep any of the rust or the debris from getting squeezed into the rubber. Now to squeeze the piston, I'm using one of the old brake pads and a C-clamp. Okay. And we're just going to squeeze that piston back into the caliper. As you recall earlier, we took some of the brake fluid out so it doesn't force it out the master cylinder. You can see this is going in. You want to get this all the way down. The new brake pads are thicker, and these barely fit on with the dimension of the new pads. So unless you get it all the way in, you won't get these calipers on. Okay, that's good. Okay, this is flush, and then we simply slide it on. Get this rubber in here. There's one on the bottom. Now these guide pins have to be lubricated, and you want to get them to the right torque. And once you get the top one in, now we have the bottom one. There's that rubber. You want to squeeze it in so you don't rip it. Now this guide pin, the bottom one, there's a difference between them. Keep them straight when you take them out. This one has square edges, has some square edges on it, and it also had rust on it. So besides the grease, I put a little anti-seize on it. It doesn't call for that in the manual. Okay, now I'm going to snug both of these bolts down. Once they're snugged, I'm going to use the torque wrench to get them to the right torque. Pins were a lot easier going in than coming out. The top one didn't have any rust, but the bottom one did. Now a couple things to keep in mind. As I mentioned earlier, when you jack the car up, have the wheel turned outward. Once I had it jacked up and the car all blocked off, I just didn't feel like taking it down to correct it. It's a lot easier to get to these nuts and to pull everything apart when you're doing it. I had a little difficulty with the caliper, getting the new brake pads in. The dimension was slightly longer than the other one, and with the rust, it gave me a workout. Once I torque this down, put the wheel back on, I'm going to do the other side. Before you drive off, pump your brakes several times. Make sure you have a brake before you get onto the road. And as always, follow the instructions in your manual. Now, if you found this video useful, entertaining, let me know by giving a thumbs up, passing it along, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe. It's free. And until next time, stay safe.